Hey guys, welcome back. So for this one, we're hopping into the conclusion of the Strange series. And with the way this is done, I want you guys to let me know at the end of this video. Let me know in the comments if there are elements from this story that you believe will return later on. And aside from that, if you're just hopping in at this point, I got the full playlist down in the description that'll get you caught up with this entire story. So that way nobody feels left out. And if you're completely new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so coming back from our last talk where we saw Clea and Strange infiltrate the Emerald City to stop the Blasphemy Cartel, this attack that started off really easy switched over to an impossible difficulty level as soon as Director Nunn unveiled the Revenant Prime, revealing it to be the Sentry possessed with 100 million ghosts, which according to Clea, this still has the Sentry at that god level power. And now I'm not quite sure if 100 million ghosts equates to 1 million exploding suns, or what exactly is the transfer rate between the two, but really it's one of those things where we just gotta take her word for it, for what it is, because Clea's seen insane levels of power, and she's aware of the level of power that Robert Reynolds was at when he was living, and she still acknowledges him here as an undead god, who she's terrified of. But like we saw, this Revenant Prime Sentry easily defeated the Harvestman, Dr. Strange, as well as Clea, the Sorcerer Supreme twice over, with him being too powerful for them to combat, and too fast for them to even do a spell on, which has now brought it to the point where Director Nunn is just gonna have the Sentry kill Dr. Strange and Clea, so that he can hand over the Sentry's body to the Trinity of Ashes. But before this happens, Dr. Strange is telling Clea to get out of there, but she refuses to leave, while moving closer to him and telling Dr. Strange, live or die, we do it together, as she moves in to touch him one last time before they both get bodied. But I want you guys to keep in mind that prior to this, it had been established that when Dr. Strange made a deal with death and became the Harvestman, he embodied a power that was the antithesis of magic, with magic being life and the Harvestman belonging to death. So the whole idea was if they were to touch, the results would be catastrophic, and that's why since Dr. Strange removed his mask and revealed himself to Clea, they've had to keep their distance, because if they were to make contact, it could be like antimatter colliding with matter, where both particles destroy each other and more. But with how things have played out in this fight, the way that Clea sees it, it's like, look, we're about to be killed anyway. And if that's the case, they should be able to go out on their own terms. And she tells him, if this act is to be our last, let it be one of love. Let it be one of defiance. Let it be one of catastrophe. And as she goes in to kiss him, Director Nunn is just yelling, no, 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 wait, wait, wait. But what ends up happening, it's much like what Dr. Strange had described before, with life and death coming into contact, exploding and imploding at the same time. Raw metaphysical energy, burning and freezing all at once, and it's enough to wipe the Emerald City from existence, and everyone in it, including them. But as we're told, Clea's not doing this as haphazardly as it would seem, because since Stephen died, she spent time mastering opposing forces, with her being the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth as well as the Dark Dimension. And as we're told, it's this experience that's given her the idea of using the same thing that Stephen gave her to make her the Sorcerer Supreme after his death, which as we learned was a piece of his soul that he attached to her before he died. So Clea uses that piece of Stephen to bridge their two souls together and harness this insane raw metaphysical energy that is being emitted between the two of them, which is super fascinating because I was looking at an article from University College London that was talking about how when matter and antimatter collide, depending on the colliding particles, not only is there a great energy release, but new, different particles may also be produced. And I say it's fascinating because that's pretty much what we get here. And full disclaimer, I'm no expert when it comes to antimatter. I'm no Adam Brashear, okay? But I do appreciate when any fictional story takes pieces of actual science, whether they be practice or theories, and implement it in the way where it's just enough to make it make sense. Because once again, not an expert, but the article did say when these two objects collide, with one being matter, one being antimatter, in the case that it did produce something new, that new thing would be smaller in mass, which is definitely not the case here. But like I said, I don't need it to be perfect, just make it make sense, even if it's just a little bit, and I appreciate that we get that here. But nonetheless, at this point with Clea and Doctor Strange merging together, they become a cosmic entity that very much reminds me of the Living Tribunal, though instead of having three faces representing equity, necessity, and vengeance, where at one point vengeance was represented by death, so there's that. But in this case you have the scythe instead of the staff, in only two aspects, life and death, which in this case I guess would make them the Living Bibunal, the Bick and Back Bibunal. But when Director Nunn asks what they are, they both respond saying strange. But just to be clear here, aside from the merging of these two powers, we're not given a full-scale description of how powerful this strange is, and I doubt that it reaches the level of the Living Tribunal. But just based on what we are given within the context, this strange entity is considered to be an equal as far as the brute strength and power that's being wielded by this version of the Sentry. And I want to be sure to make it clear that we're dealing with a lot of bespoke elements here. And I say that because I know there's some of you guys who just like to take videos like this or read issues like this and say, oh, the Sentry's as powerful as XYZ, and he was 1-to-1 with the strange entity. And that means, like, nah, I'll tell you what that means. Nothing. Because there's too many wild cards at play here, in this story at least, to take anything from this and jam it into some who's as powerful as what kind of story, and potentially get into an argument on Reddit where someone else is going to tell you what I'm telling you now. So with that said, just take it for what it is in this story, nothing more. But at this time, with Director Nunn telling the Sentry to attack the strange entity, they're at a stalemate. Neither one is overpowering the other. So right here, the cosmic entity Strange looks into the Sentry's eyes, and they tell him, you deserve better than this, Bob Reynolds. You are more than a vessel. And right away, they break free the 100 million ghosts trapped inside of the Sentry, which then causes him to go unstable. And it creates the scenario where now the Sentry is a ticking time bomb that's getting ready to explode and destroy everything in a 1-mile radius. Which on one hand isn't that bad, since the Emerald City is isolated within this artificial storm, so really only the people here would be killed, which is fine with Clea. But inside of the strange entity, you have both Dr. Stephen Strange as well as Clea Strange going back and forth, because Stephen would rather spare the lives of the Blasphemy Cartel agents instead of just leaving them here to die. And eventually Clea, she reluctantly agrees, because another thing that's pretty much unique to this situation is that both Stephen and Clea, though they can speak individually, in this moment they've got to be on the same page to pull this off. And the crazy thing is, what they end up doing here, which takes them little to no effort, it reaches far beyond the abilities of either the Sorcerer Supreme or the Harvestman. And it's even something that Doctor Strange wouldn't have been able to pull off as Sorcerer Supreme without hours of preparation or endless deals with higher powers or the consumption of magical artifacts, because what they end up doing is seeking out every soul across Emerald City, every agent of the Blasphemy Cartel, and they send them all back to their regular lives, but without any memory of being Blasphemy Cartel agents. Which on the surface sounds like a simple act, but it's really OP when you think about it. For them to figure out who all these people are and where they're from, and send each and every one of them back that fast, it's pretty wild. But also with doing this, we quickly find out that the strange entity isn't exactly omniscient, because just after saving all the other agents, they tell Director Nunn that they are not able to do the same for him. And it's mainly because of the deal that he made with the Trinity of Ashes, who erased his identity so that he could become Director Nunn and deliver the Sentry's body to them. And it's kind of sad, because at first he's like, I don't need you to save me. And then he starts crying out to the Trinity of Ashes like, come get me, save me. And it just creates one of those cases where, with Strange effectively stopping the Blasphemy Cartel, he's fulfilled his end of the bargain with death. So him and Clea convert back to two individuals, and they make their way back down to the ground, while Director Nunn is left behind with the destruction of the Emerald City. Where in his case, with Director Nunn, it's one of those things where that could mean anything. But also with Doctor Strange and Clea coming back, it's here where Death lets Stephen know that a deal is a deal. The Revenant threat is ended, and Stephen's time as the Harvestman is complete. So she restores him back in the land of the living. And I'm not sure why, but it's kind of funny to me when Death departs, because the last thing she says is, until we meet again. Because I'm just like, oh, you didn't have to say that. But effectively, this gives us the return of Doctor Strange and the conclusion of this story, which will definitely have a number of repercussions that follow these events that have taken place, especially in the case of Death herself. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/DopeSpill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.